All right, Flo Villamino has now joined me in the studio. She's been thumbing through the day's newspapers eagerly.
Eagerly, of course.
Getting newsprint everywhere, I'm sure. Flo, talking about the main headlines in the French papers. And they're relatively similar to what they were talking about yesterday. Political matters, the new parliament, the new government, lots of reforms expected to come in.
Absolutely. And today's cabinet meeting is, of course, in the spotlight. The government is going to outline its bill to reform France's notoriously complex labor laws. Now, according to Les Echos, the business paper, this labor reform is actually much wider than was originally announced. What the government wants to do is introduce more flexibility into the system, more flexibility into working contracts, for instance, and essentially make it easier to hire and especially fire people here in France. It's quite difficult. And the government wants to move very quickly. Les Echos points out this timeline. Essentially, the government hopes to make progress as soon as this summer. Remember, France usually grinds to a halt during the summertime, but the government kind of wants to push reform through now.
Absolutely. Anyone who's never experienced August in Paris, it's a cultural experience.
And no Parisians. It's the best time to be.
No Parisians, but not much else happening at all. Well, in spite of all of that looming, Emmanuel Macron, as you said, very keen to get this pushed through. However, two words that make a rather controversial phrase, executive orders.
He wants to, in a way, bypass Parliament and push this through. Lots of focus on that controversial issue, but also what the changes are actually going to mean.
Okay.
You can see here on the front page of Aujourd'hui en France, Le Parisien, they're talking about what this is actually going to mean for your workplace. And inside you can get all the details, but there's still a lot of mystery around this labor reform. But I like the way Le Parisien describes it in here. You can see this quite literal labor code. It's a red book here, holding essentially a dieting book. It's summertime. It's time to slim down. But that timing is also the focus of Aujourd'hui en France, Le Parisien, which says that Macron is using the summer as kind of a shield, a protection to push this reform through because he's trying to avoid the wrath of trade unions who probably won't pounce on him during the summer, but you can expect some major tension in September, rather.
Well, I mean, warm weather draws people outside. Could that include some enormous street protests? It's been a little while since we've seen them.
It has. Now, there are already people who are protesting against this law. You can read about it here in L'Humanité, the communist paper, which shows a photo there of a demonstration that took place in
well
Paris.
kitted out there.
Looking pretty good, exactly, ready for the weather. Now, you can see here they're talking about how this new reform has actually cast a shadow on the new parliament because, of course, yesterday we were talking about how the new parliament got to work yesterday. Mixed reactions in the press, though. If we take a look at Les Echos, the business paper again, they're actually a little disappointed in what we're seeing outlined in this new reform. They say that actually it's not going far enough. You can see here in this editorial, they're saying the government is on the doorstep. Well, it would be on the doorstep of really liberating work in France, but it hasn't really taken the step. It's being a little bit too precautious for now.
All right, well, let's come back to sort of the nuts and bolts of this new parliament. I'm sure we'll be talking about those protests if and when they do spring up. They elected their new speaker in the parliament yesterday, which might sound a little bit boring, but I think that the person they've chosen is a very interesting character, and he's certainly it's an important position in the parliament.
It sure is. He kind of whips lawmakers into action. You can see him here. It's François de Rugy, formerly from the Green Party, jumped on the La République En Marche bandwagon. There's a play on words here on the front page of 20 Minutes. They're talking about le régisseur général, so a play on words with his name, but régisseur général is the general floor manager, and that is indeed what his job is going to be. Opinions are split, though, over whether he's cut out for the job. Le Figaro says that he's a very pragmatic environmentalist, so perhaps he'll be able to push things through, but L'Humanité, the communist paper, says actually he's just opportunistic, making the most of his time there. Now, another issue that's come up...
Give him a chance. He's only just been named.
Exactly. Give him a little bit of a chance. It's not even been 24 hours. But, yesterday we were talking about this new parliament, how it's very feminine, how there's a record number of women lawmakers. But the key question was, would these women actually get key positions in the parliament? Well, according to Lups, no, they haven't. It wasn't a woman who was elected the speaker of the parliament, and none of them got key positions in the parliament. So under its airs of almost gender equality, the French parliament still has a lot of work to do.
Oh, we don't like to just be standing in the shadows, do we ladies? We might rise up on our own. Well, finally, yesterday, France's national ethics committee said it was in favour of something that a lot of women in France have been pushing for several years: medically assisted procreation for all women.
Because it's currently reserved for women in heterosexual relationships. So it's banned for single women and lesbians. Now, this opens the door to new legislation here in France. It's a very, very thorny issue, particularly amongst Catholics. And let's just take a look at the front page of the Catholic paper that wonders, are we going to medically assisted procreation for everyone? Lacroix says we need a legitimate debate on this issue.
Interesting indeed. I'm sure there will be plenty of debate. Thank you so much for starting it. Florence Villeneuve, our press reviewer, back a little bit later on with the international papers.